Let me start by expressing my heartfelt congratulations to the Foundation and in particular to Leonor Beleza for this great event discussing very serious issues that occupy us now for the next years and even 100 years to come. As former president of the European Research Council, I would also like to congratulate you for the 5 ERC grants that the Foundation has within a very short period of time. This kind of recognition is extremely valuable and recognizing what you have been able to achieve. So, the title of my presentation is Stumbling into an Artificial Future. And wanting to know the future is something that has occupied humanity from the very beginning. Wanting to know the future, how can we prepare? What does the future hold in store for us? And how can we predict? We no longer practice divination. We have science as a way to help us predict and extending the range of prediction, but the future remains uncertain. 100 years from now is a daunting task to think ahead for this span of time that is much larger than our individual lifetime. But if you look at it from a geological time perspective, it's a mere blip. What you see here are major transitions in our history and the history of the Earth, transitions that were accompanied also by major innovations, migrations, technological innovations, but also the extinction of species and other kinds of events. Transitions mark us, they shape us, and maybe this is better. And transitions, we have been listening to Manuel right now, and we find ourselves in the middle of a transition of how to live on this planet. Right now in Paris, the discussions about climate change and COP21 continue. But it's not only the world outside, it's also the world inside us. And there are recent advances, such as the CRISPR technology, that is revolutionizing the way how we are able to select and to selectively insert, delete, and change the DNA of organisms. The next 100 years, and this is the title and the cover of my book that has appeared very recently, has a message to you here in the audience, namely, do not be afraid of uncertainty. Uncertainty is the force that pushes us into the unknown. It is a resource that enables us to deal with the unknown. It's cunning, and science thrives on the cusp of uncertainty. One major challenge we face is that we are not well equipped to foresee the unintended consequences of human action. In our daily life, and this is also what evolution has equipped us with, we can see cause and effect relationships in a very short time distance and period. But the unintended consequences that arise in this modern world of complexity that we live in, and what you see here is merely a snapshot of the kind of interconnections that are created by people who use social media. But this kind of complexity and interaction is a very dynamic process. In the next couple of minutes, this kind of network will take a different form and different dynamics. And complexity arises from the interconnection of parts and the unintended consequences are part of this complexity. Now, trying to look ahead, there are many journeys of discovery to be made, but there is no simple solution, and there is certainly not the one path to follow. What can be said, I believe, is that there are some signposts. And one of them has to do with repair, with regeneration, with repairing the errors of nature, but also the mistakes that we ourselves have made. And just to pick up on what Manuel was speaking about, the institutions that we have right now have been designed for problems of a past age. So repairing institutions, regenerating the institutional life that we need means also to come up with new kinds of institutions in the sense of regeneration, repair, maintenance. But then there's also the fascination of the novelty. We hear about innovation on a daily basis. Politicians are making a bet on the uncertain future, and they call it innovation. The European Union has a slogan that innovation will innovate us out of the crisis and the like. But let's take a closer look to what is actually happening. Here you have data from the US Patent Office. It goes back to 1843. And what you see, and the categories have not changed, what you see is that the original ideas make up a rather small part. This is contrary to what we hear, new ideas, new ideas, new ideas. What is happening, in fact, and if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. It's recombination and reuse. And the more inventions we have, the more knowledge we have, the more we are able to recombine and reuse. And big data, just to pick up a thread of yesterday also, big data enables us to reuse these data for new kind of questions. Data have not been collected for a specific purpose, but it's a challenge to us to come up with new questions and to use them. So these kind of signposts also make it clear that we need a new ethos of care, taking care of the planet, taking care of ourselves and of our societies. One major change in the mindset that I foresee are the shifting boundaries between what we call nature and culture. This has dominated the way how artists, philosophers, theorists of various kinds, but also practicing scientists have been dealing, trying to reshift this kind of boundary between nature, nurture, or nature and culture. Nature that was originally conceived as something threatening, overwhelming of humanity, but at the same time always accompanied with an ambivalence, because nature was also seen as nurturing and as protecting. It was ascribed magical qualities. You see here a picture going back to Lucas Cranach the Elder of the Fountain of Youth, a very old dream of humanity that we can rejuvenate, jump into the pool as elderly persons and come out and enjoy the joys of youth. But the challenge ahead is how we will reconcile the human and the non-human world. We have seen an expansion of what we call human. We have seen that biology has told us the kind of relationships we have with other organisms, not just primates and vertebrates, mammals, but also very primitive organisms. We have seen an expansion of animal rights and so on. But the major challenge is how to reconcile our idea of humanity with the artifacts that we create, that we put into our bodies, that we surround us with, that we interface and interact with continuously. So in my view, the 21st century will be one in which it is not so much a question of nature versus artifacts, but nature and artifacts, extending and enhancing the human capabilities. And we have come a far way. We have robotics. We speak about Industry 4.0, which raises the not minor question about the future of work that we have so far not been able to answer. We have prostheses of various kinds, wearable electronics. We have not the gods of, not Deus ex machina, but we have Deus in machina, which are the algorithms that we put into the machines and the computers. And this I see to be the major challenge. We are stumbling into an artificial future, and we may be looking just as confused as Matt Damon is here when he finds himself on the Mars as the Martian. So the next 100 years, I see it to be an artificial future with science as at the forefront, thriving on the cusp of uncertainty, pushing further into the unknown. And science is the best invention humanity has made of bringing the future into the present. But science is nothing that is isolated, that is apart from society. It is part of society. It's a cultural activity. And the way how this potential will unfold in society is made in society. And here we need democratic institutions. We need many ways of shaping and coming to terms with this challenge. At the end of my very short exposition here, I would like to return to a poem by your great poet, Fernando Pessoa. And I have asked the moderator first to read the poem in Portuguese. I will then read it in English, and I will add 2 questions that I want to leave with you.
O poema é num dia excessivamente nítido, que o Fernando, como Alberto Caeiro, num dia excessivamente nítido, vi que não há natureza, que natureza não existe, que há morte, que há montes, vales, planícies, que há árvores, flores, ervas, que há rios e pedras, mas que não há um todo a que isso pertença, que um conjunto real e verdadeiro é uma doença das nossas ideias. A natureza é partes sem um todo. Isso é talvez o tal mistério de que falam. Foi isto o que, sem pensar nem parar, acertei que devia ser a verdade, que todos andam a achar e que não acham, e que só eu, porque a não fui achar, achei.
I will now read it in English. The poem has the title, On an Excessively Clear Day. I saw that there is no nature, that nature doesn't exist, that there are hills, valleys, plains, that there are trees, flowers, weeds, that there are rivers and stones, but that there is not a whole these belong to, that a real and true wholeness is a sickness of our ideas. Nature is part without a whole. Maybe this is the mystery they talk about. This was what I hit upon without thinking or pausing. This must be the truth, that everyone goes to look for and doesn't find, and only I found it because I wasn't looking for it. This, by the way, is what in science we call serendipity. So the deep insight that I want to call your attention to, in my view, is nature is parts without a whole. And the question that this raises in my mind, and the question I want to leave with you, does this mean, and this is one possible interpretation, that we humans are what is lacking to make it whole? In other words, to bring the nature that is not a whole, that is parts, and us, we are parts of nature, but we have now reached the capability of transforming nature and ourselves. Is this the new whole, or, and this is the other part of the interpretation, do we have to rethink our notion of wholeness, to move away from the holistic gestalt that many of us associate with wholeness and start to think of relationships? Thank you very much.